And welcome back to I Don't Imagine Anyone's Listening, the podcast where I talk about whatever it is that I want to talk about because I don't imagine that anyone's listening. So funny story. Remember at the end of last year where I was like, hey, it's Advent and I'm going to do this liturgical year thing where I read a Tolkien book in every liturgical season and then I do a podcast on it every month. And then I immediately skipped Christmas. And I had all of January to do Christmas because technically in the liturgical calendar, even in the modern calendar, you don't necessarily have to be like, well, it's according to the old calendar. Anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is super boring. Christmas goes all the way until February the 2nd. So I had all of January to do this, and then I didn't because of reasons, mainly because I'm incapable of reading one book at a time, and I was reading like 4 other books at the same time that were like faster, easier reads than this one, so kind of got lazy. Anyhoozles, also slightly frustrating because I just recorded 20 minutes of this podcast and then somehow I managed to lose it because I'm amazing. Anyway, so this is take 2. Welcome to take 2. It actually might be a lot cleaner than the first time because I had a dry run, even though I didn't know it was a dry one. So I skipped out Christmas, so now we're in ordinary time. And the book for ordinary time that should have been for Christmas is The Children of Hurin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm definitely not. There was a pronunciation guide at the beginning of this book, and I did not follow it. I tried, but then I did that thing you do in fantasy books where you're just like, you come across a name you can't pronounce, and you just go, and everyone gets their own sort of gobbledygook in your brain. So I think I'm going to say Hurin. I know it's probably Hurin or something like that. Also, the main character is one of the Children of Hurin, because that's the name of this book. His name is Turin. I'm going to call him Turin because it's so much easier. So let me give you a little background as far as I understand it, because this is the first non-Lord of the Rings / Hobbit book. So this is the first of Tolkien's books that I have ever read all the way through that was published posthumously, or Middle-earth books anyway. I have no idea what if any, non-Middle-earth stuff he published in his lifetime. Anyway, so as far as Middle-earth history, this is the first one that I'm reading. It's one of the ones that came out, I can't remember, in the last, 15 years or so. It's pulled from lots of stuff, and it's sort of they synthesized a couple of stories. They sell them as the Great Tales box set. You can also buy them separately if you feel like buying books, which you should always feel like buying books. So this one, Children of Hurin, is about, shockingly, the Children of Hurin. There are 3 of them. I don't remember the names of the 3rd one because she dies very early on, and more of a sort of motivator than anything else. She doesn't really play into the plot. So there's Turin and Nienor and another sister who dies before Nienor is born, and I can't remember her name, and I'm sorry, and I'm not going to look it up. Anyway, so the sort of this book was kind of tough to read, not just because I didn't know the characters, I didn't know their like significance and sort of the lore and the history and all of that. That did make it difficult, but also because so most of this book is Turin sort of on his travels and his adventures, and every time he sort of has a important experience or joins up with a new group of people, he changes his name, and then they continue to use the name that he changed it to, and it's very confusing. I found it very confusing because I was like, wait, what is he called now? And are we talking about the same guy still? I'm gonna give you the broad strokes of the beginning as I recall them, because I finished this book at 2 a.m. last night, or very early this morning technically, and so the only bit I really remember is the very bit at the end, which conveniently is the good bit. At the beginning, we have Hurin, and we have his daughter who dies as a small child, and then we have his son, Turin, who's the main character of the story, and his wife, Morwen, and they are all humans. There are elves in this story too. This family is human. And so Hurin gets captured by Morgoth, who's the big baddie. The big baddie. Just sort of broad strokes. He is the baddest of all the baddies. All of the bad things, all the evil things in Middle-earth serve him, including Sauron later on in the stuff that most people know, myself included. So Morgoth is the big baddie, and he captures Hurin in battle or something, because there's lots of orcs that pop up, and then obviously we have to fight them because that's what you do when orcs pop up. Hurin gets captured by Morgoth, and Morgoth is holding him prisoner for the entire book. It is unclear why, but mainly it's just because, well, it's unclear to me because I don't understand the context of who this Hurin guy is, but the point is Morgoth holds him captive because he wants to screw up his family. And he does that very successfully, I might add. But we'll get to that. Morgoth captures Hurin. Hurin is a young man, or he's still a child. He's like 10 years old or something. And he's having a rough go of it, as you would if your dad got captured by a super evil bad guy. And so there's him and his mother and his little sister. And his mother sends him to live with some elves. The king of these particular elves is called Thingol, which is a name that I know, but I didn't have any context for until now, so that's fun. So he goes off to live with them, and he he's treated very well there, but he's obviously out of place. And anyway, it's very, it's sort of foreshadowy of Aragorn and living in Rivendell as a child and all that jazz. So, we start to see some patterns in the history and the stories, which is a thing. I don't know. I'm tired. I already did 20 minutes of this and then I screwed it up. So this is going to be, well, for me, low energy. Anyway, so he goes off to live with the elves, but he's unhappy there. And he decides he needs to go out and look for his father. So he goes and he gets sidetracked almost immediately. He falls in with some vagabonds and ne'er-do-wells, and he makes them slightly less ne'er-do-wellish. He encounters a dwarf who is petty. This is a petty dwarf, which I really like, and I don't know if that means something else in context or if it's just his personality, which it kind of is. Anyway, so he encounters the dwarf and some elves and some vagabonds, and there's one elf in particular who's sort of his brother-in-arms, and he dies, as brothers-in-arms tend to do in these kinds of stories, and the adventures continue, and blah, 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 and he's gone for quite some time, and during the course of that, his mother, Morwen, decides, hey, I haven't heard about my son for quite some time. I should go find out what happened to him. And so she goes, I can't remember if she takes her daughter with her, but eventually the daughter ends up with her, and she goes to Thingol to be like, hey, bro, what's up? And so then, she finds out that her son has been gone for ages and ages doing, who knows, and all that kind of stuff. So she's off, and she decides that, I'm going to go look for him. And the daughter doesn't want her mother, the daughter Nienor doesn't want her mother to go. And so her plan is, I will threaten to go with her. And so then she'll change her mind and come back. This plan immediately backfires because Morwen is like, well, if you're not going to stay behind, I guess you're going to come. And so she comes. And then they get, some orcs fall upon them, and people get separated, and Nienor runs into this dragon called a Glaurung. And so now we're going to take a little sojourn to the dragon. So, the dragon is very important. The dragon is a servant of Morgoth. I hope I got his name right, because the name of Turin's sword is kind of similar. It's another G one, but here we go. Glaurung's the sword. The dragon. What's the name of his sword? I gotta find the bit where he kills the dragon. Gurthang. Gurthang is the name of the sword. Haha. Okay. Glaurung is the name of the dragon. At an earlier time, Turin discovers that he's got to kill this dragon if he's going to find his father. And so he tries to kill the dragon. It doesn't work. The dragon puts a spell on him with his dragon eyes, because dragons could do that. So he is under this spell. But of course, he doesn't know that, because that's how dragon spells work. And he goes back to this sort of village or town that he's been protecting and leading. And in the meanwhile, this sister also encounters the dragon. His sister Nienor also encounters the dragon. And the dragon puts a spell on her as well. And then she runs off and finds her brother. But as they are both under a dragon spell and using different names, they don't know who each other are. So at this point in time, Turin is calling himself Turambar, and Nienor, is calling herself where's her name? Niniel. They run into each other, and she, at this point in time, is naked, because dragon spells are a hell of a drug. And so she comes across his settlement or whatever, completely naked, and they take her in, and over time, because they don't know who each other are, and also they are under the spell of a dragon, they fall in love. And then Turin Turambar asks Nienor, his sister, to marry him, and she is all for this, even though their friend Brandir, who may not be an elf, unclear, I don't remember, it's not really important, he has a feeling, probably because the good gods of this situation are giving him some insight, that this is a very bad idea, and they should not do this, but he doesn't know why. He can't express why because he has no idea. And so the only thing he can tell her is wait, and just wait. And she doesn't listen because she doesn't. Dramatic irony, dragon spells, etc., etc. So she doesn't listen, even though he's like, just put the brakes on for a sec. And she's like, but I love him. Anyway, so they get married, and she gets pregnant, and and you, the reader, are just like, ha 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 ha, ew, gross, ew, gross, ew, gross. Eventually, for plot reasons, I'm sure there's a real motivation. I can't remember what it is. Anyway, Turin is like, okay, I have to go fight this dragon again. It's time to go fight the dragon again. And so he goes off to fight the dragon again, and he does manage to kill the dragon, or almost kill the dragon. So like the dragon is dying. So he plunges his sword all the way up into the dragon, like buries it in the dragon. Doesn't kill the dragon right away. So as a sort of like screw you to the dragon as he's killing them, he says something. Oh, had the quote. Here we go. He says, "Hail, worm of Morgoth, thus we meet again. Die now in the darkness have you. This is Turin, son of Hurin, avenged." And so the dragon I think the dragon knew who he was, but now the dragon definitely knows who he is now. And he decides to have some fun with this for evil purposes. As he's dying, or as the dragon is dying, Turin tries to pull his sword, the black sword. It's very important. He is also called the Black Sword a lot because of his black sword. So he pulls the black sword out of the dragon, and he gets some dragon blood on him, which is bad. And so he falls unconscious, looking like he's dead. Some, Romeo and Juliet kind of stuff going on here. And so then Nienor comes across this dead guy, who is her husband and also her brother, who is actually not dead, so she finds him, and she attempts to tend to his wounds, but she thinks that he's dead, and so she's, very sad. And then the dragon is not quite dead. And so the dragon decides that he is going to speak to her. And so he says to her, "Hail, Nienor, daughter of Hurin. We meet again ere we end. I give you joy that you have found your brother at last. And now you shall know him, a stabber in the dark, treacherous to foes, faithless to friends, and a curse unto his kin, Turin, son of Hurin. But the worst of all his deeds you shall feel in yourself." And she knows exactly what that means. And she's like, oh, shit. Except dramatic. And then the dragon immediately dies, and she realizes what she has done, because of course she does, because she's not stupid, and she is rightly hit with a wave of horror and regret, and she runs to the edge of the river and throws herself in and gets swept away to the sea and dies. And then Brandir has witnessed all of this and also knows the truth now. And he's like, damn it, I was right. And so he goes back to the village settlement town thing and tells everyone, well, he doesn't tell them the whole story because, he's got some tact. And he's like, well, your leader is dead, but the dragon's also dead. So it's not the worst. So then they go to, they think, collect the body of Turin. But he's not dead. And so he wakes up and Brandir has to tell him what happened, which is awkward and unfortunate. And so Turin, again, just as his sister wife was, stricken with guilt and anguish and disgust and horror, etc., etc. And so he runs to, I think, the spot where she threw herself in the river, and he kills himself with his black sword, and then the black sword breaks. So, yep. Then Brandir is like, well, this is a real tragedy. And so he buries them. Well, he buries him, but he puts 2 markers on the grave, even though she's not there. So Turin's gravestone reads Turin Turambar Dagnir Glaurunga, which probably has something to do about killing a dragon. And then Niniel is also on the grave, even though she is not actually buried there because her body got swept out to the sea. So it's real tragic. But that's not where the story ends. Because as you recall, Hurin was being held captive by Morgoth, and also his wife and the mother of the Children of Hurin was looking for her son. And so we don't know what happened to her after the orcs. And so, after the deaths of Turin and Nienor, Morgoth released Hurin from bondage and in furtherance of his evil purpose. In the course of his wanderings, he reached the forest of Brethil, where his children are buried, and came upon the evening the crossings of Teaglin, that's the river, to the place of the burning of Glaurung and the great stone standing on the brink of Cabed-Nerlamarth. I'm not 100% sure what that is, of what befell there is told. So he, it seems, finds out what happened to his children and the unfortunate ending to their sad lives. And then he sees someone and he realizes it is his wife. And so they are reunited, which is very, very sweet, but also very sad. And she asks how her daughter found her son, and he wisely does not answer, and then she dies. So tragedies all around. Yeah. So spoiler alert. I just ruined this book if you haven't read it. It was a tough read, partially because of all the names, and it's very episodic, and it's and like the real meat of it is the sort of tragic accidental sibling marriage, and that doesn't happen until like the last, 70 pages or so. I mean, it's not a long book. If you exclude all the notes, it's only about 260 pages, so it's probably even less than that the very last bit happens. It's you start to understand why a lot of this didn't get published in his lifetime. It's not bad, it's tough to read. And it's not like, yeah, you see why. I mean, also he was very much a perfectionist, and so these particular stories were like pulled and distilled, and if you read his son edited it down, so if you read the editor's notes, you understand a lot of what was going on there. But anyway, so that's a thing that happened. But what's cool about these books is that you start to see what he was Tolkien, obviously, was doing with these stories. So, because if you know anything about him, you know that he was a linguist and he was very interested in sort of mythology and history, but particularly languages. And but he was also trying to create a mythology for England and like the native people of England, because they don't really have one. King Arthur is technically a French story. Obviously the Norse mythology is Norse, even though there is some similar traditions. But you see the influences of all those things, like it sort of has the feel of it is very Norse mythology. Like that's sort of the images that come to mind as you read it. But the stories with the sort of accidental relative marriage and the like important young man keeping his identity a secret and going off and doing many adventures, it reminds you of Hercules or Theseus. Well, the accidental relative marriage is more Oedipus, but whatever. You can see the influences of Greek mythology on there. So you see the influences of all these cultures that he grew up in and studied and all of that. So, and then you also see how he's using all of those traditions to create something that he wishes existed. I'm going to keep reading these. Up next, we'll be right smack in the middle of Lent, so I'll be reading Lord of the Rings, because that's what I do in Lent, I decided. I did it last year, and I'm like, I'm going to do this forever now. So up next will be most likely Fellowship of the Ring. We'll see where I am in there. And I'll have, hopefully, a lot more intelligent stuff to say about that, because I have read that many times before, and also it's a more familiar story, so there'll be less of me trying to muddle through the plot. I'll have some more interesting things to say about stuff and things. If you made it to the end, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know, but whether or not, you listened anyway, so haha. Anyway, if you would like to keep listening, you can listen to the back catalog. You can subscribe to catch me next time. If you have any interest outside of this podcast, my social media and my website are in the description. There is also a link to support the show if you'd like to do that, though, I get it. You want to support quality content, and I don't think we're there yet. So, but if you would like to, not going to say no, obviously. I don't think I can reject money from people. I wouldn't know how to reject money from people. I mean, in this context. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about money because it's getting a little bit gross. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you next time. Goodbye.